Hey there, if meal times in your house feel, I don't know, more like a battleground than a time to actually connect, then this little coaching session is definitely for you. We're going to dive into how a really simple shift in the way we talk about food can completely transform those stressful moments for good. Oh boy, does this sound familiar. It's a phrase that, let's be honest, so many of us have either said or at least thought. And it comes from a good place, right? Of course it does. We want our kids to be healthy. But what if this totally well-intentioned comment is actually making things harder? And this right here, this is the core shift we're exploring today. On the left, you see that typical reaction, judgment. But on the right, you see a much more powerful approach, simple curiosity. It really does seem like a tiny change, but I'm telling you, it can unlock a much healthier, happier relationship with food for your entire family. All right, so here's our game plan. We'll start by really understanding this whole healthy versus unhealthy trap we all fall into. Then we'll walk through a three-step solution and we'll finish up with a brand new mealtime script you can literally start using tonight. First up, let's unpack the real problem here. Why do these labels, which seem so logical on the surface, so often backfire? Well, it's because they accidentally link food with morality. Good food versus bad food. And this can create a kind of forbidden fruit effect. And over time, it can really chip away at a child's trust in their own body. Now, a lot of advice out there tells us to just swap out our words. So instead of saying something is bad, we try to say something that sounds a bit nicer, like, let's find the best fuel. But can you hear it? Can you hear how this just keeps the same dynamic going? It's still creating a good versus bad choice, just with, fancier language. And yeah, this just hits the nail on the head. The underlying message is exactly the same. The child still hears that their choice, maybe that piece of cotton candy, is the worst kind of fuel. And so that label of bad just sticks, even if we never actually said the word. Okay, so what about this tactic? You've probably heard this one too. Telling kids what specific foods do inside their body. It sounds great in theory, but it gets really confusing really fast. Like, is ketchup a red food that gives you a strong heart? What about red licorice? And even worse, when a kid naturally gets a cold, they might start blaming themselves for not eating enough green foods. It just unintentionally connects food with guilt and self-blame. So, okay, if labeling doesn't really work, what does? We're going to walk through a super simple three-step process that helps us move away from all that judgment and toward curiosity and real connection. The very first step is simple, I promise, and it starts with you. It's all about becoming aware of your own patterns, of your own inner food critic, without any judgment at all. So here's a little exercise for you. Over the next couple of days, just notice. Pay attention to your own internal monologue about food. What thoughts pop into your head when you reach for a snack? What words do you use when you talk about your own meals? The goal here isn't to criticize yourself, not at all. It's simply to observe how your own thoughts frame food as good or bad. And what's really key here is realizing that judging food as good or bad is just a thought. It's a mental process. Just giving kids a bunch of nutrition facts doesn't automatically help them eat better. The real magic, the real shift, happens when we move our focus from our analytical mind down into our body's physical sensory experience. And that brings us right to our most powerful tool for making that shift, our senses. This is the key to getting out of our heads and actually into our bodies. And here is a fantastic and honestly kind of fun little tool to help you practice. It's called the sensory song. As you eat, you can just sing this in your head, checking in with each sense. What do you see? What do you smell? How does it feel in your mouth? What do you hear? It's just a playful way to guide both yourself and your child back to the actual physical experience of eating. See? Doing this little sensory check-in helps you answer those really crucial questions. Instead of relying on some external rule about portion sizes, you can start to ask yourself, how do I know when I've had enough? The answer isn't in a book, it's a feeling, a signal, in your own body. And that's the skill we really want to help our kids develop, the ability to listen to their own internal cues. And that right there, that's the secret sauce. That's why this works. A sensory experience doesn't have a moral value. Describing cotton candy as pillowy and sweet isn't a judgment. It's just an observation. It's a lived experience. By focusing on describing instead of evaluating, those labels of good and bad just kind of naturally fall away. And look, we have to remember to meet our kids where they are. They are natural-born sensory explorers. So when they touch and poke and squish their food, it's not them being bad, it's their brain learning about texture and temperature and consistency. If we can reframe that messy exploration as learning, it can dramatically lower our own stress levels at the table. Which leads us right into our third and final step, changing the conversation. We're going to shift our role at the dinner table from being the teacher to being a fellow explorer. This is your new mealtime mantra. Educate less, explore more. It just means we stop delivering those nutrition lectures and we start asking these wonderful, open-ended questions that invite curiosity and shared discovery about the food that's right in front of us. Okay, now for the fun part. Let's put all three of these steps together into a new script. Here is some actual concrete language you can use at your very next meal, especially when you're faced with a request for something like cotton candy. So the old script, your first instinct, might be to jump in with all the reasons why cotton candy is bad for them, right? The sugar, the food dye, that's that judgmental, fact-based statement that we're trying to leave behind. Instead, we're going to pivot to one simple, powerful question. And here it is. This is your new script. It's just this one simple question. How is cotton candy for you? This question is kind of magic because there's no right or wrong answer. It totally validates their experience and it opens the door to a real conversation, completely free of judgment. Now, the best way to kick this off, you go first. You model it. You could say something like, for me, cotton candy feels really airy and is super sweet on my tongue. And then you just turn it over to them with this open invitation. What do you notice about it? You're not telling them what to think. You're just inviting them to share their own experience. And really, that's what this all boils down to. This entire approach is about shifting the main question we ask about food. We're moving away from that external intellectual question of, is this healthy? And we're turning inward to the personal, physical question, how does this feel in my body? And that shift, it doesn't just reduce mealtime stress. It empowers our kids with a trusting, intuitive relationship with food that can truly last them a lifetime.